Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for stopping by again. In the last video, several people did mention the fact that I had neglected to talk about the change in the credit ratings for Panama. I was expecting to and completely forgot about it in the pressure of other things, which actually I considered more important at that time. Now, this little drama that goes on with the credit ratings is going on forever and ever. It will continue to go on for a long time. There are real damages involved if we do lose it, because there are various government agencies or various private banks and institutions who are not allowed to invest their money in countries that are not investment grade. So that would close doors for us, and it would lose potential income or potential credit from these particular organizations, so on. But that's only part of what's really a much more complex figure than that. I mean, people have a lot to think about when they look at these ratings. This is the big one, and it's true, okay? But the real reality is that for most outsiders, it's not just the credit ratings, it's the economic indicators. There's a whole pile of them, and some of them will be more relevant to one particular lender than another. And if ours look good at this one, then the ones that interest them, they'll invest. Okay. Then there are also the financial markets. Basically, they're looking at each other. They're saying, they're talking. They're looking at what people do, not just what they say. The markets will say something about Panama, okay, as a result. And it may be negative, it may be positive later on, you never know. All these factors, though, are not summed up in the credit rating. Now, the credit rating takes some of them into account, but it can't just wander around following the market. It can't watch for every economic indicator to come down, because it may or may not be accurate to begin with, things of this sort. So who are these groups that do this and so forth? Now, in regards to Panama, I'll give you a link in the description below, which you could take you to Trading Economics, where people get a lot of statistical information. I get my Panamanian information from the horse's mouth, so to speak, right here in Panama. But this is where I go and I check the credit ratings. So I'll give you a link to the page that simply reports the credit ratings. You'll notice something, by the way. You probably heard that three biggies in ratings, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch, especially Fitch, have been aggressively concerned in lowering Panama, and Fitch actually are the one who put us into outside of investment grade. And they were always up there at Trading Economics every time I would go. I've been using that, for more than a decade now. I don't know how long, a long time, for things like, for the credit rating specifically. Now, if you go in, you've discovered, I did at least, just not many months ago, that Fitch's is no longer on the list. They're just gone. That's interesting. They've been replaced by Dun & Bradstreet. That's a perfectly respectable organization. And that will have, they've decided, for whatever reason, that they think this particular credit rating agency is doing a better job than Fitch. But Dun & Bradstreet is really getting rolling in this area, and they have yet to do a profile on Panama and given it a rating. So that's a blank for Panama at the moment. So technically speaking, both of our ratings that are shown there are investment grade. Always nice to see. But they do more than that too at Trading Economics. They also combine a number of the very factors, some of the factors I talked about, and they come up with a numerical score and so forth, whatever that is. You'll see it all there. Whatever. When we get into this stage, and we went through it with watching it happen in Costa Rica a couple of years ago or so, it's almost like a dance. I don't want to say it's predetermined, it isn't. But it's always the same sort of thing. I've actually, a vice president of the IMF, who's now retired, was one of my first staff people years ago. It shows how old I am. And he's bright as could be. And I sent him out on an extremely difficult task in Africa. It was a humanitarian crisis and so on. He went with another young man who had worked with me, and I knew he was solid as gold, but I didn't know whether this man was going to measure up to it or not. I hoped so, because it's extraordinarily difficult, and there would be no way for me to be in contact with them while they're in the country, and God help if they got in trouble. But anyhow, we needed to do it. They needed to do it, so they went and did it in good spirits, and they survived fine and came back fine. Turns out he did a really good job. So did the other. They both are fine young professionals, and I was so happy, But with one of them, it was the first time with us, and so it was the first. You never know. Now we knew, but he had other plans too, things he was interested in doing, further education he wanted, goals in life. And one of those was to get into one of these agencies, and he went on into the IMF, rose to the vice presidential level, and since, as I say, retired. Shows me how old I am when guys like that go through their entire career and then they retire. Anyhow, and what I'm trying to get across here is here's one very smart, very sharp guy who also doesn't mind getting into the most difficult part of working overseas, particularly in those days. I think it's bad today. It was much worse back then. No Starlink. I mean, there was just there were very few ways to even find them, much less maintain communication under the circumstances they lived in. It was a war going on around them, and it still is. Different actors sometimes, but it's an ongoing problem. So this kind of person also ends up in these agencies, and I wanted to stress that because they're not all a bunch of desk jockeys their whole life. People like him know what it's like on the ground, and have that. I think he'd been a Peace Corps volunteer also before that, but it was very good and job. And my dealings with IMF particularly, I found a lot of them are sharp people, and they really are concerned with getting it done right and helping the country get through whatever disaster it is, whatever hole it's dug itself into, and get up out of it. But it's going to require sacrifice on the part of the government, which is not what they're interested in, because, of course, they have to ask the people to sacrifice. And that was a struggle in Costa Rica, and they got through it. And 3 cheers to Costa Rica for it, as I understand at least, has done reasonably well in coming through and meeting its standards under the IMF's agreement with them. And that's so critical for them. They are not at our level or anywhere near our level in terms of they got a ways yet to go to get to investment grade further than we do, but they have made progress. They've rounded the bend, and we have to be supportive of that. They're our neighbor, and we want them to be successful. And we're both peaceful countries. We get along well. Whatever. Look at these situations as there being a number of people involved. There's the government. There is the opposition to the government, maybe 2 or 3 different political parties in some instances. There is the press, the media. There may be the church that may be active, the unions may be active. There's a whole bunch of people, different groups that are involved in all of this. And these agencies have to speak in a way they understand this. They're having to say effectively, you messed up. It's too late now. I mean, what's been done has been done. Now we're going to help you get out of it, but you've got to change things, or else we're wasting our money, and we don't like doing it, and neither do the people who provide the money. Every word is written with that in mind. And by the way, this doesn't just happen out of the clear blue sky once a year or something. They maintain contact. The whole community maintains contact, all these different people, because it's also involving other agencies and banks and everything. I had a bank from New York call me up in the administration prior to the last one and said, Bob, we can't understand the numbers coming from Panama. I said, they don't add up. They just don't add up. Something is missing here, and we don't know what it is. Can you tell me what's going on? And of course, I made the fatal error. I should have said, oh, well, I will find out, and I will get back to you. No. It's not the way it operates. Not the way I operate anyway. I said, I don't have any idea. I will have to look around and see if I can find anything, but I can assure you, if they're hiding it from you, they're hiding it from me too. Right off the top of my head, I just simply can't give you even an idea of what is going on because I don't have that information. Why lie? But you can pretend that you could get the information, then sort of slip off into the distance, I suppose. It saves your reputation or whatever. Whatever. I don't do that. I don't play that game. So we found out when the next administration came in, which is the last one, a couple $1 billion had been hidden, so to speak, taken off the books and stuffed away in a corner or something. I don't know how he pulled that off. But that was when everybody discovered where that money had gone. And that was not a good thing. And the first thing that the new administration had to do was to go out in the markets and borrow the money to pay that back. So to get that off the books so that it would not immediately affect us. I'll leave it at that. It gets too political after that. So you understand that this is the way it goes. They're in constant communication with each other and the community, the investment community, the banking community, the financial community. They are in the agencies themselves. I mean, it's not like S&P and Moody's and Fitch and everybody else and Dun & Bradstreet don't share. I mean, they talk to each other and they read each other's reports, and J.P. Morgan, they read their reports, who've been also writing them. There's a lot going on that you're not aware of. And all of it mixed together is something that the government is well aware of. Mr. Chapman, who is in charge of the Ministry of Economics and Finance here in Panama, he's very much aware of all of it. He seems to be an extremely well qualified, and he was well received by all of the financial community when he accepted the appointment. He almost didn't because he knew it was going to be a tough one, but he took it. A patriot, and it's a tough job. So I don't know where it's going to end up eventually, but you need to understand that this ebb and flow. It's not one of these things where the roof falls in if we drop down out of it. Oddly enough, it does not work this way normally, so I'm not predicting anything, but if Panama were to drop out of that being investment grade, just a level down, so to speak, and then things really turned up for us and we boom, back up. Think of this. Those agencies, banks, institutions that had to stop investing in Panama because we weren't investment grade, would suddenly be able to get back in. It could lead to a nice little boom. That's not the way to do it, guys. The way to do it is to not lose that. So I'm hoping that they don't. But it will. We have the coming weeks. Everyone's watching. We'll see how it works out with the Social Security and a number of other things. And meanwhile, we're still talking about the mine, but that is going to have to wait its turn. It's politically a delicate time, and there have already been some demonstrations against, the standard run-of-the-mill demonstrations against the Social Security upgrade changes, and so forth. But nothing particularly noticeable, or certainly no concern. You don't have to worry. We're very civilized down here. We've been accused of being too polite. I feel like Canadians sometimes. Anyhow, that's what that is. Why I don't mention it is because, it's going to be what it is. This is up to the National Assembly in particular to either work this thing out or not, and with the administration. If they can do it, we're looking good. If they can't and it falls apart, we have to start all over again. It does not help. We'll see. But it's not me to tell them what to do. There are plenty enough people lined up to tell them. They know what's going on, and so does Mr. Chapman. All right, that's basically what I wanted to say there. Now, others have been asking about the NBC News is an announcement that the Trump administration expected to send people whose governments would not accept their return. These are the undocumented or illegal aliens in the U.S. routine, that situation. If they would send them to, if they wouldn't accept them, say back in Venezuela, and they won't, then what do we do with them? Well, we'll put them in other countries. And Panama is listed off the record as one of those countries. And Panama and the others who are listed, there were 3 or 4 basically islands in the Caribbean and what have you, said no, we don't do that. They're not nationals of this country, so they don't have any passport here. They're not citizens here. We don't accept them as, they're not ours. You work that out with Venezuela. Okay, and that is where I expect it will stay. It would not be a popular move here. From everything, no, it wouldn't be, I can assure you. Anyhow, we won't worry about that. That will move on and end up wherever it ends up. That's about it for now. I just wanted to bring that together, and hopefully I've added a little bit to explain to your knowledge and trying to get this across, because it's always a question of formal statistics and announcements, but it's also what goes on behind the scenes, and which is constant, and where genuinely people try their best to get something to work, or they don't. And that happens too. And then things are really bad. But in this case, I think so far, most of the people involved have wanted something good to happen outside Panama. Now we've got to get everybody together in the family here, an agreement and which way to go. That's going to make for an interesting December. And I'm sure we'll all have one, and I hope a very good one. I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you for being with me today.